Your Excellencies, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Usually the Americans and the British start with a joke and the Dutch with an apology. So in order to keep that tradition alive, I want to apologize to you for doing my speech in English, but that's out of respect for a very esteemed international guests who are willing to be with us here and participate and contribute to this meeting. Welcome to the 40th anniversary of NCDO, and welcome to the first biannual NCDO conference, bringing together practitioners from different fields: global development, development cooperation, environment, human rights, economy, business, and from different affiliations: science, civil society, private sector, policy, and governance. And a very special welcome to Dr. Pascal Lamy, Dr. Sri Mulyani, and Dr. Yuma Mupachu. The words spoken by Prince Claus, the first chair of the National Committee on Development Cooperation, superbly express what development and development cooperation was all about: support and work in collaboration with poor countries in a relatively stable political environment in order to get out of the poverty trap. Invest in people as well as in infrastructure, institutions, and governance. Don't take over and prescribe people what is best for them, but provide tools and assistance for self-reliance. For more than 40 years, the Netherlands and its citizens have full-heartedly supported the goals of development cooperation. The Netherlands is one of the 5 countries that currently allocate 0.7% of its gross national income to official development aid. And the total amount that Dutch citizens per capita donate to caritative causes is amongst the highest in the world. The Dutch branches of Oxfam Novib, Greenpeace, Amnesty, UNICEF, Médecins Sans Frontières belong to the most important branches, as do religion-inspired organizations like Cordate and ICO. But international orientation and commitment is not limited to ODA. In other areas, the Netherlands has taken its international responsibility seriously: peacekeeping missions, climate negotiations, fair trade. And this is reflected in the annual Commitment to Development Index of the Center for Global Development, where the Netherlands always ranked in the top 5. Last year it was number 4, and in 2007 and 2008 it actually was number 1. And without trying to quantify its contribution, NCDO over the last 40 years has contributed to this exceptionally high and broad level of public and political support. But the support base is weakening, and it would be too simple to attribute this to the banking crisis in 2008, the current euro crisis, and the related significant budget cuts. Factors that should be taken into account as well are questions about aid effectiveness. There is issues around bad governance and corruption. There is the number of low-income countries is decreasing, a result of, amongst others, impressive growth rate and open trade agreements. There is the emergence of new superpowers: China, India, and Brazil. And there is a rapidly fading of the North-South paradigm. Wealth can be found all over the world, as can poverty. And the changed phase of poverty and hunger is impressive. 50% living now in emerging economies, 25% in politically stable poor countries, and 25% in conflict-ridden countries. Access to information through the ICT revolution has made the world, our world, flat. And last but not least, there is a re-emergence of other issues: food and water security, a fast-growing population, an upcoming energy crisis, and ever-rising CO2 emissions, to mention just a few. And people who have a positive attitude towards development cooperation indicate that on the one hand, they feel that development cooperation is a moral and humanitarian obligation. On the other hand, they have trouble in dealing with negative media coverage around development. For some reason, civil society and media don't succeed in transferring the positive results. Those with a negative attitude, however, find their attitudes and opinions easily reinforced by negative media coverage. They're not interested in what happens in the world. Their circle of identification is limited to their most immediate networks, and they emphasize that the government, the Dutch government, should solve the national problems first and foremost. The world is no longer the rather simple and comprehensible world it once used to be. From unilateralism to bilateralism to multilateralism to plurilateralism and quasi-lateralism. A world where, next to the nation states, non-state actors have acquired and expanded its power and influence. And the interdependencies and interconnectedness have made our world much more complex and sometimes incomprehensible, not only for the average Dutch citizen, but also for those who are supposed to give guidance to make sure that adequate checks and balances are in place. All of the above call for a new paradigm around global development, global governance, and global responsibility, but also for a new and contemporary conceptualization of citizenship and global citizenship. A new paradigm that centers around three major themes: economic, ecologic, and social sustainability. A paradigm in which dealing with global issues and the securing of global public goods for all is a global responsibility, not a responsibility of the North or the West alone. No one country, no one sector alone will be able to solve the global challenges we are facing. But we have to be aware of and accept the fact that our responsibility is higher than average, simply because, to a high extent, we have been responsible and we are responsible for the creation, existence, and continuation of these global challenges. Just to give you two examples. This is the world. It's a little bit weird to look at this picture, but this is the ecological footprint, and it indicates how much of the resources the high-income countries are using. If we look at the distribution of absolute poverty, which is the next slide, I think, we see exactly the opposite picture. And it doesn't matter if we talk about child mortality, maternal mortality, absolute poverty, chronic hunger, lack of clean water. The countries in the south are still worse off. And if we look at the level of education, healthcare expenditures, investments in research and development, and the ecological footprint, the production of waste, and the prevalence of obesity, we are the ones with the fat bellies. So, sometimes shrinking is a chance. At the same time, citizens are aware of the enormous growth and influence of emerging economies, China in particular. Companies are taken over, factories are closed down, jobs disappear. Income inequalities in the US and Europe are increasing. And acquired arrangements around pension schemes, access to healthcare, and higher education, unemployment provisions turn out not to be securities and guarantees. And last but not least, the current euro crisis has given rise to an already existing distrust in institutions, governments, and elites. And this creates a specific cognitive problem for people. The old paradigm was simple. We are rich, they are poor, so we have to help them. The new paradigm is more complicated. Their wealth is increasing, they are taking over our companies and jobs, and they expect us to make a greater financial contribution in order to deal with urgent global problems. We have to slow down while they are surpassing us. And generally speaking, people don't like that. They want to keep what they have, and preferably they want to grow it. This easily creates a situation where at the level of the citizen, an inward-looking, individualist, local and provincial perspective takes over, and where on a state level there is a tendency to fall back to protectionist and isolationist policies. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the main theme of our conference today. This morning, Dr. Lamy, Dr. Muliani, and Dr. Mapachu will elaborate on these themes from a global perspective. A globalized world requires global citizens, but economic connectedness doesn't automatically translate into social and interpersonal connectedness, even the more so if differences rather than commonalities in value systems, religions, cultures, and societies are emphasized. The implications of the above paradigm shift are also paramount for NCDO. Creating awareness about and the understanding of global challenges and opportunities needs to go hand in hand with awareness about what people as citizens can contribute to alleviating, mitigating, and ultimately solving the global challenges we're facing. It is no longer about creating support for development cooperation, but about citizenship in relation to global development. About responsibility, perspectives, and fairness. The creation of a sense of global citizenship in which there is not only a felt responsibility at the family, social, local, and national level, but also at the regional and global level. A shared responsibility for a common future for us and for future generations. But let's be realistic about this transformation from strengthening public support for development cooperation to an engagement of all in dealing with huge global problems. That challenge is the lead theme in the plenary talk of Jos van Gennep, who steps down as the chair of the board of NCDO, but he will never let down on his commitment to international development and social cohesion. And the Netherlands is still one of the countries where social cohesion at the local level is high, exceptionally high. Almost 50% of the Dutch, women and men, engage in voluntary work, and is exceptionally high compared to other European countries. And it is a strong indication of the strong commitment to active and participatory citizenship. However, local cohesion doesn't necessarily mean that people connect at a global level, despite the fact that information and communication technology and travel allow us to do that. And this afternoon's panel with André Van Ness, Paul Scheffer, and Herman Wijfels will address the issue of how to connect local communities to global communities, how to transform a sense of local anchorage to global anchorage. And it is easy to say that if all of us would feel and act as global citizens, many things would be so much easier. But it is not a question of the why, it's a question of how. Finally, in what way will NCDO contribute to this transition? It is NCDO's ambition to contribute to building bridges between citizenship and global challenges, and between local and global citizenship. And NCDO will do this in a variety of ways, and importantly, many of the examples I will give are implemented in partnership with others, which is really one of the underlying principles of NCDO. Firstly, we will continue to invest in global education and awareness. SamSam, with 420,000 subscribers in grades 6, 7, and 8. And 2 months ago, Lisbeth Schouten introduced a junior SamSam. And without any kind of promotion, 115,000 children in grades 3, 4, and 5 are using this. And this is all done through the teachers. So I think there is an enormous appetite for being connected to the world. One World, the collaboration between Internationale Samenwerking and Onze Wereld. 120,000 subscribers and 70,000 unique visitors per month. The dissemination of Earth Charter, which is a source of inspiration for everybody who is working at NCDO and for everybody who's working with NCDO. I think I may say that. surveys and focus groups amongst the Dutch population and subpopulation, business, kids and young adults. And a recent example is the survey around the Occupy movement in the Netherlands. Discussion and debate and publications on the green economy, water and food scarcity and other global public goods. You will find the first three publications in the Globaliseringsreeks in the main hall. And the development of an Atlas on global development, the successor of the Millennium Development Goals Atlas. And secondly, we will empower people to take action themselves. We should never forget that Prince Claus' vision about empowering and facilitating people applies to all of us. Each of us is in the position to contribute to global development. Many of us in small ways, together in a big way. Just a few examples. The online platform and journal for small-scale development initiatives. The World Connectors, with its vision document on agriculture and the work that they're doing now on the real price. The Voice-Over Network, which brings people together from Armenia to Zambia in order to systematically exchange knowledge and experiences around the globe. The Food First Alliance, with Susiers and SIT, and the training and bringing together of people with different backgrounds and perspectives, young business professionals, teachers, civil society professionals, political talent, journalists, etc. And finally, we do research to understand public opinion about global development and challenges and how to act on it. We have the annual population survey on international cooperation, and as I mentioned earlier, the recent poll on the Occupy movement. To identify ways in which citizens in whatever role can act as responsible citizens on these issues. As a volunteer, as a political participant, as a consumer, as a producer, a decision maker, an employee, an entrepreneur, and so on. And I hope that this is exactly what we will see in our Battle of the Cheetahs, of which you will hear more just after the lunch. So once again, welcome, and I hope you will enjoy the discussion, the interaction, and the spirit. Thank you so much.